The Final Four is here. Who is going to take it, Auburn or Florida? And who will end the SEC's title drought? Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers who are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. You go to 5hourenergy.com. You'll find 15 flavors to choose from. If you need one now, grab the 5 Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. Stock up today and stay energized. Well, we got a showdown of the two top let me try that again. The top two teams from the best conference in men's college basketball. Try saying that 5 times real fast. I might need a 5 Hour Energy to keep up with all the momentum and excitement of this game that is upon us, happening Saturday evening. Cannot wait. Florida versus Auburn. We've got the Final Four set, of course. Auburn will play Florida in the early game. Houston versus Duke in the later game. So we know, we talked about all week, the SEC guaranteed to have a representative in the national championship game for the first time since 2014, and a chance for the SEC to win its first men's basketball title since 2012. Look, this is very simple. We were supposed to have, or we want to have Brandon Olson and Zac Blackerby, hosts of Locked On Auburn and Locked On Gators, on our show. But both those guys got together with the guys at Locked On College Basketball, Isaac Shade and Andy Patton, and they did like a big roundtable discussion. So I figured we'd bring you some parts of that conversation, mostly from Zac and Brandon, to get the Auburn perspective and get the Florida perspective mixed in with my thoughts and that sort of thing. So let's just start here first. First, Florida, their run over the second half tells the story of this year's team. Of course, it's February 1st. The Gators have lost only once, and that was at Georgia on February 25th. That game still just, it was like mind-boggling when they lost that game. But they have had some trouble here in recent weeks, but they overcome. They find ways to win. They were down late against back-to-back national champion UConn, and they found a way to win. Alex Condon sustained an ankle injury against Maryland in the Sweet 16. They held on until the 6'11" standout returned to close out the double-digit win. And we all watched the Furies come back from a 10-point deficit in the final minutes against Texas Tech in the Elite Eight. The Gators have 5 wins against top 20 Ken Pom teams by 14 or more points in March, and they refused to quit against all the adversity. What we've learned about this Florida team, they are incredibly difficult to beat. On the other side is the Auburn Tigers, a 1-3 stretch entering the NCAA tournament, called Auburn's ceiling into question, but those 3 losses came against Tennessee, Alabama, and Texas A&M. And we've since learned it's still the same team that lost 1 game from December 4th to March 4th behind the leadership of Johni Broome, one of the best players in the country. Yes, Alabama State had a brief lead over Auburn in the first round, but the Tigers went on to win by 20. They went on to beat a good Clayton team by 12 in the second round, and they held Michigan standout Danny Wolf scoreless for the final 13 minutes of their Sweet 16 win over the Wolverines. Then they overcame Johni Broome's mid-game injury against Michigan State to hand them their first NCAA tournament loss to an SEC team under Tom Izzo ever. And so here we are. It is Auburn versus Florida. This is where we'll mix in the conversation with our guy Brandon Olson and Zac Blackerby. What is the latest on Johni Broome's health? Our Zac Blackerby sounds off.
I'm not concerned about this. Like, whether Auburn or Florida wins on Saturday, I don't think Johni's health will be the reason why either team wins one way or the other. I think a lot of these practices at this point of the season are mental. They've played Florida before. They've got a game plan already in place. Offensively, Johni Broome knows the system better than anybody. And also, guys, just the fact of the matter that he came back in. He came back in after missing those 5+ minutes, was effective on the glass, and drains a 3, an incredible moment for Auburn basketball fans. The fact that he came back in is why I'm just not really that concerned about it.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you on that, Zac. Obviously, him coming back onto the floor is a pretty good sign that things are going to go in his favor for this game. But you talked about Auburn having a strategy offensively kind of coming into this game, obviously having already played Florida this year. What do you kind of expect to see Auburn do? Is it kind of the same as what we've seen from Bruce Pearl's offense throughout the season? Are they going to do anything a little bit differently, knowing Florida has, perhaps a little bit more size in the front court than some of the other teams they've played up to this point in the tournament? Kind of what are you expecting to see from them on that end of the floor?
I don't think we've really seen Auburn deter from what they want to do offensively based on the size of their opponent. I mean, that was the big thing about Michigan. It's like, oh my goodness, they've got these two behemoths down low. What's Auburn going to do? And they still went to Johni Broome early. Michigan State, a little bit different story. They went to Johni Broome early, and it was just like they couldn't do anything to stop them. It was insane. It was incredible. It was. I'm expecting them to do the same thing early with Florida. The big question is like, okay, Johni Broome's going to get his, we assume. If he doesn't, Auburn's in trouble on Saturday.
No.
Who's the next guy? Is it Tahad Pettiford, who's the only other player who had double digits against Michigan State, but he only had 10? I kept waiting for a Miles Kelly or a Denver Jones or a Chad Baker-Mazar to pop, and it just didn't happen. So they're going to need one of those other guys to step up. I think Johni Broome's going to get his 15 to 25 points, depending on how often they go to him and the foul situations and his availability and all that. But to me, it's okay. Who on the perimeter steps up? That to me is the biggest question.
Yeah.
And so, go ahead, Brandon. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that Miles Kelly's the guy that I keep thinking about with this game, just because in their first matchup, he had 22 points in that game. And I think that he had more open looks than he converted. And so if he's going to keep getting those open looks, I wouldn't expect him to not convert those in a game like this, in a situation like this. So he's the guy that I kind of look at. And yeah, Tahad Pettiford, I feel like he's been.
I think it's Tahad, Brandon. I think
like
if Auburn,
he's been going.
He's been nails, and like he didn't really have that much larger of a role against Michigan State. I mean, nobody outside of Johni did. You saw guys try to, volume it up a little bit. They just didn't fall. But to me, I think if Auburn wins this game, it's because Tahad pops off. I think he's the guy that needs to step up next to Johni Broome.
And we've seen him do that all season long, Zach. Let's go all the way back to that game in the Toyota Center in Houston. That was the plane fight game where, yeah, right. Good grief, how far we've come. Anyway, well, I don't want to get derailed by that, but legitimately, from that moment, I was like, Tahad Pettiford is an absolute dog, right? Good luck. But the thing is, as we look at then how does Florida stop it? The Florida stable of guards is so deep to be able to do that defensively, as is the front court. And Brandon, that's where I want to go. I remember a lot during the Florida Texas Tech game last week. Darion Williams from Texas Tech, obviously a lot smaller than the front court of Condon and Houck and stuff, but they kept ISOing him and he went bully ball and had his way. Johni's got inches and weight on Darion Williams. Do you see Auburn potentially being able to do the same, or how does the front court stop that?
If they don't at least try to do the same, then that's an absolute failure. With the pick and roll, Texas Tech was having success whenever they wanted to. They were posting up, and it was effective every single time. Alex Condon's plain and simple just needs to step up. He played great against Auburn the first time they played. Johni Broome had an off night with that game, or off day because it was a day game. But Alex Condon needs to step up. Ruben Chinulu needs to step up. Defensive rebounding needs to step up. This is a game where what Auburn's going to do because they're Auburn. They're going to take that approach. They're going to go with that game plan that they're always going to go with, especially against a team like Florida. And it's just about Florida. Can you actually answer? Because right now, points in the paint, they've been horrible protecting the paint. They've been horrible getting defensive rebounds for this whole tournament. They've gotten worse as the year's gone on. And it's going to give me an aneurysm at that point. But I feel like Alex Condon, Ruben Chinulu, I don't expect Thomas Huck to go out there and play good post defense. He's there, but he's 6'9", and that feels a little generous. And so I don't expect him to go out there and protect the paint the same way I would expect Alex Condon or Ruben Chinulu to do so.
How you think?
Yeah, I think Auburn's trio around the basket is a big part of all of this, as you've mentioned, especially with how Florida played against UConn and Texas Tech just most recently. But with Johni, sure, that's a big part of this. But Dylan Cardwell has had an incredible NCAA tournament, both from a production standpoint and an impact standpoint. And then Chaney Johnson as well, as far as, okay, he's able to score. He's a problem that you've got to prepare for. I'm curious to see how much they go to those guys and just kind of the chemistry that they have around the basket as far as being able to move the basketball and, create shots and opportunities for each other. I think that is a matchup here that favors Auburn.
That Dylan Cardwell was in serious foul trouble last time that Florida and Auburn played. So that was the one reason he wasn't a huge factor.
That's a great point, Brent.
He played like 20 minutes because of foul trouble. Chad Baker-Mazara had a few fouls, which is, everybody expects that at this point.
Did y'all see somebody tweeted out, hey, nobody's talking about it, but Chad Baker-Mazara has been on his best behavior, and he retweeted it Wednesday morning. I think that's hilarious.
It's because his hip is all acting up and he's like an old man,
Yeah. All those Alabama players just kept elbowing him, and like everybody just seemed okay with it. So
that was insane.
ZB, one more question since we're still talking Auburn's offense. Obviously, Johni Broome is typically their leading scorer, and we're expecting him to come into this game healthy. Do you expect that to be the case where he is the player who leads Auburn in scoring? Do you think maybe Tahad Pettiford ends up being the guy, or could it be somebody like Miles Kelly? Could he come out and have a big game and ultimately be the guy who leads the Tigers in scoring in this one?
Yeah, obviously Johni Broome needs to be effective. He needs to be in double digits. I think he needs at least 15. But I tell you what, if Johni Broome gets at least 15 to 20 and he doesn't lead Auburn in scoring, I think Auburn wins.
That again, Zac Blackerby and Brandon Olson, the guys on Locked On College Basketball. Yes, Johni Broome, look, everybody's wondering how healthy he's going to be. Look, there's no question he's going to play. The question is, how healthy is he? And I think that's where you just kind of, if there's pain, you take something for the pain, you man up and you go. This is it. This is a Final Four. This is a chance to win a national championship, a chance to do something that Auburn's never done. You suck it up and you go. All right, more to come here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Hey, life moves fast, especially when you have a family, and one day you're watching your kids take their first steps. Before you know it, they're off to college, and that's why securing their future is so important. Fabric by Gerber Life makes it simple to get them life insurance that fits your family's needs. With Fabric, you can apply for term life insurance online, right from your couch. You can be covered in under 10 minutes, and in many cases, no health exam is required. As a parent, you want to make sure your family is financially protected no matter what happens. Fabric will give you that peace of mind. You can get $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day. So protecting your loved ones doesn't have to break the bank. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric. They'll protect their families. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. That's meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Insurance Company. Not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions. Fabric by Gerber Life. This episode also brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Look, baseball season is in full swing, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, you pick more than or less than or at least 2-player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash, whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or the first inning runs. Prize Picks keeps every game exciting. This week, you could pick Aaron Judge for more than 1 home run, Shohei Ohtani for more than 1 stolen base. It's that easy. You set up a lineup, takes less than 60 seconds, and when you win, your payout is quick, safe, and secure. Take advantage of Taco Tuesday, where Prize Picks offers discounts on select player projections for even more value. If you've never checked them out, go download the app today, Prize Picks, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, rolling along here, Locked On SEC. Thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. Keep coming back and checking us out. Monday, we will have a championship edition, whether it's Auburn or Florida. Look, we're Team SEC. I get asked all the time. People are like, why are you rooting for the conference? Look, it's just in the SEC, it depends who it is, right? I mean, we talked about it this past week. Luke Robinson said under no circumstances will he, as an Alabama fan, root for Auburn. Jimmy Stein said the same thing. He's a diehard Alabama fan. I think Zac Blackerby is the same way. If this the shoe were on the other foot and Alabama was playing in a Final Four, no Auburn fan would be rooting for the conference. But in other aspects, look, it does help the conference. More wins, more success, more championships equals more money, more revenue for the rest of the conference. I get it. You don't want your rival to win something, to do something that your school didn't do. But I love all my children equally across the SEC. We root for the conference success and more often than not, SEC dominance across all sports. Men's college basketball has been the one that they have eluded here in the past decade plus as far as winning championships. All right, let's get back into it. Does Florida have an answer for Johni Broome? That is the big question. And, I don't think any team in America has an answer for Johni Broome. He's been a top contender for every National Player of the Year award out there, but Florida is equipped to be assertive against him, which is the best opponents can do against a player of his caliber. The Gators have multiple players they can send to aggressively defend the 6'10" Johni Broome. Of course, when you look at guys, you want to stay out of foul trouble if you're Florida, but some of your bigs are going to have to find a way to do it. If Auburn forces Florida to switch a lot of matchups and a Gator guard ends up on Broome, it's lights out. So it could be a long day there. On the flip side, the question with Auburn, how can Auburn limit Florida from going on runs? Florida's first-round game against Norfolk State showcased the extremes of their offense. It's been America's best since March 1st. They scored 53 points in the final 16:45 of regulation against Norfolk. Had that been a 48-minute NBA game, Florida would have been on pace to score 151 points. Auburn witnessed that burst potential firsthand in their 90-81 loss to Florida back in February. The Tigers had a 9-point lead in the first half before the Gators went on a 37-18 run in the final 12 minutes to carry a 10-point lead into the locker room. Auburn must focus on Walter Clayton Jr. He has been the catalyst of those runs, and he has been outstanding. Cannot allow him to hit those big shots and shift that momentum. Tigers also can't be afraid to slow the game down, call an early timeout, limit the Gators' opportunities that could get that offense on a roll. So the question is, as we go back to our experts, Brandon Olson and Zac Blackerby, will Florida change up their style of play at all versus an Auburn team they've already played and beaten this season? Or Brandon Olson gives his thoughts.
I expect them to stick relatively par for the course. This is what got you here, right? Playing this brand of basketball has gotten you here. I would hope that we see them play kind of similar to how they've tried to play lately, where I do feel like they've gone, hey, maybe we'll kill the pace a little bit, just to protect the ball more, because they were turning the ball over a ton throughout a lot of this tournament. But I do expect them to say, hey, Walter Clayton Jr., this is your time, go at it. I know that there's a lot of Florida Gators fans that all of a sudden are like, oh, just start Thomas Houck. Don't do that. He should have been the 6th man of the year. Don't change things that are working. You're a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. You're in the Final Four. Don't change anything that you don't need to change there. Walter Clayton Jr., he's the driving force of this offense. He's as cold-blooded as they come. And I mean, he's showing up in a huge moment. He's showing up, and I would expect him to try to take the lead again here, and maybe try to attack the paint a little bit more off the dribble. I feel like he's had success getting there. I sent a message about 2 games ago where he was getting some whistles that he probably shouldn't have gotten, and I was like, okay, he's getting the superstar whistle. He's getting the superstar whistle, so he should keep trying to do that. And Auburn's bigs get them in foul trouble if possible.
Zach,
yeah,
I've been trying to process. I've been trying to process something all week about this, and I've been waiting to ask you, so I'm not going to let you interrupt me.
Please go ahead.
Obviously, Denver Jones is the best perimeter defender for this team. He's 6'4" to Walter Clayton's 6'3". Have you seen Bruce Pearl do a thing where he might, even though Denver's the best perimeter defender, he might use the superior size and length of Miles Kelly or CBM at 6'6" or 6'7" with one of those guys on Walter Clayton instead of Denver Jones?
Yeah, Auburn switches so well defensively, especially like 1 through 3 with the 3 guys that you just mentioned. They switch so well. To me, what I was about to say is, like, everybody's talking about Johni Broome and his health. That being means, bullet point and all this, and the relationship between the head coaches and all that. The most important thing in this game, I think, is Walter Clayton versus Denver Jones. I think that's going to decide who wins this basketball game. And I think down the stretch, Denver Jones defensively has been phenomenal. He's been incredible. And in some cases, he's really helped Auburn stay in it, especially when Auburn has gone through some of these stretches where the offense hasn't been able to keep up with the defense. To me, I think you put Denver Jones on him. And if you have to switch to a CBM or a Miles Kelly, I think that's totally okay. But Denver Jones's perimeter defense is a big part of what got you here. I mean, talking about like with what Brandon said, like duo got you here. Putting Denver Jones on the best perimeter scorer is a big part of what got Auburn to being the number 1 overall seed and to being in the Final Four. So, like, I understand the size matchup, and CBM and Miles are going to have reps against them for sure. But I think you start the possession with Denver.
I was going to ask because Andy, Isaac, you guys are way more basketball knowledgeable than myself and Zach. Is there any reason or logic behind saying, hey, let's not put our best perimeter defender on Walter Clayton Jr. because we know that Florida's going to go with their dribble handoffs and their screens, and we switch so frequently? So could we not set it up to go, hey, well, based on those screens, eventually Denver would get on to Walt instead of starting on him and then switching off when Florida inevitably runs their action?
All right, more from our guys. Another X factor in this matchup. How about Elijah Martin, one of Florida's key contributors that did not play in that previous matchup back in February? Here was Brandon's thoughts on how this changes things.
Yeah, I think that he's just such a I feel like he's just a spark for this offense. You know, he makes the transition plays. He's, in my opinion, the best perimeter defender on Florida, even though Florida doesn't typically, match up, our best perimeter defender against your best ball handler. But I think that he adds a lot to the offense. He's played fairly well. Didn't shoot too well against Texas Tech. He had some open threes and missed them. But prior to that, I mean, you lose the UConn game without him. We're not even having this conversation without Elijah Martin because Florida loses the UConn game. He had 12 of their points in the first half, and he was averaging 14. So he's been a driving factor here. He provides some juice. 3-ball, again, wasn't hitting against Texas Tech, but every other game in this tournament, he's been connecting on his threes, his free throws. He's been playing lights out, and he's the only guy on Florida's roster that has that Final Four experience already from when he was with FAU.
And I mean, both of these rosters, I mean, we just keep listing guys, and you could do it for both of these teams. I mean, both of these teams offensively and defensively, for that matter, they can throw so much at you. And so to me, it's like down the stretch, okay, who's going to make these big moments?
Yeah.
Who's going to be able to capitalize? And so far, I mean, Florida has escaped, a potential upset twice in this tournament against UConn, and then what they did against Texas Tech was unbelievable. Auburn hasn't been in that situation yet with this tournament. Like, they were down big against Michigan early in the second half, and they went on an incredible 20-2 run or whatever. But it wasn't a similar situation, and at that point it was all Auburn. So in the final few minutes of a tournament game, this team hasn't felt that yet, and so I got a feeling they are going to feel that in this one, because I think it's going to be close regardless of who it is. I think it's going to be close with a few minutes left, and I think one of the two teams is going to pull away in the final few minutes, and it may not look as close as the game actually was. That's just my prediction on this, but I think it's going to be interesting to see how does Auburn respond in that situation, because they haven't really done it yet outside of that Michigan thing, but that happened with 12 minutes left to go in the game.
And I feel like always in these high profile games, it's easy to focus on the Walter Claytons and the Johni Broomes. And we forget that we're talking so much about how do you defend Walter Clayton that you forget that you guys talked about Elijah Martin, and then we've got Will Richard. And that backcourt is so insane that any of those three dudes could do this for Florida. And so you're going to need all three of the Auburn backcourt defenders, and along with Tahad when he comes in, and everyone to pitch in on that. It just, so as you just said, Zach, so many fun matchups all over the place. I cannot wait to see how this happens. Can Condon pull Dylan Cardwell, pull Chaney Johnson out to the perimeter and force them to defend in space, all this great stuff. So BO, I want to ask you the same question that Andy asked Zach. In your opinion, who leads Florida in scoring in this basketball game?
I mean, it's Walt. It's Walt. There's just, if it's not Walt, I'll be floored. It's just, he's going to get, I mean, pure volume wise, he should be the leading scorer. He's going to get more looks than anybody else. No matter what you do, he's going to get his looks. Like similar to the Cooper Flag, Johni Broome up. Do you just let him get his? I feel like you have to with Walt because he's going to get his shots up. He's going to get his looks. They're going to draw things up to get him involved. And I am interested to see what happens, though, because Texas Tech, he wasn't as involved in the offense in the first half, partially because he was playing his tail off defensively in the first half. And so I would assume that he has to do the same thing against Auburn. And I'm curious if making him work more on defense is the best way to try to slow him down on offense.
All right, still more to come here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And I want to remind you guys, today's episode brought to you by our friends at 5 Hour Energy. Daylight savings, man, we're still kind of hurting from trying to figure out how to catch up on that lost hour of sleep. 5 Hour Energy, they've got your back. That extra sunshine means more time for fun. But sometimes you need a little boost to power through. And whether you're staying up late watching the tournament like us, or just trying to get through a work day, whatever it is, 5 Hour Energy is going to give you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. With longer days, you're going to love getting outside for a hike or a run. That tropical burst flavor might be your go-to for a quick boost. Whether you're at a game or traveling, 5 Hour Energy is easy to grab and will keep you feeling refreshed. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, peach mango, blue raspberry. You can even build your own 12-pack, your own 24-pack, get it delivered right to your door. If you need one now, grab a 5 Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They're everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized with 5 Hour Energy.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
All right, continue on here. Locked On SEC. We are full on into our Final Four preview. And of course, now comes to the moment that could be who will win this one. And we'll get Brandon and Zach's predictions and how this one will play out. But first, ESPN, they gave out their predictions. Here's what they say. Auburn will win if the Tigers limit Clayton's impact on the outcome. Auburn has multiple defenders it can use to corral the Florida Star. It will need all of them on Saturday. The NCAA tournament has been a showcase for the All-American guard, but the Gators are a significantly different team when he is having an off night. If the Tigers can make it difficult for him, then Auburn will have a chance against a team that scored 90 against them in February. Coach Bruce Pearl needs a game plan that does not allow Walter Clayton to do whatever he wants on the court. I say Walter Clayton. They wrote this wrong. Florida will win if the Gators play the way they have for the past month. Again, ESPN writes they have made 58% of their shots inside the arc, 38% of their three-point attempts since March. They've also had the best offense in America over that stretch. They know how to pummel opponents and can do it from every spot on the floor, and they have a unique combination of experience and talent. Walter Clayton Jr., AP first-team All-American. Elijah Martin, participating in his second Final Four in 3 years. Will Richard, one of 6 upperclassmen on the team. They have length that few teams can match and are 10th in adjusted defensive efficiency. So let's jump into it. We're going to get predictions on who wins, but first, what is Florida's key to a victory against Auburn? Here was Brandon Olson.
It's defensive rebounding. I mean, you look at, and I will throw some stats at you for a second, where during the season, they allowed an offensive rebounding percentage of 26.16%. Then during conference play, so regular season, 27.7%. And then the SEC tournament, Florida allowed an offensive rebounding percent of 28%. And in March Madness, they've allowed an offensive rebounding percentage of 31.5%. And so they've gotten worse as the year has gone on. And Auburn's a team that they're going to hammer the offensive glass. And so Florida's had the size advantage in a lot of these games. And so it's not about that. It's just that you have to put in the effort. And outside of Thomas Houck, I've been disappointed with some of the effort we've seen on the defensive.
Yeah.
glass.
So is Auburn able to capitalize on that? And I think there's two ways to that. One, they get it under and they draw a foul, and they haven't been great at shooting free throws down the stretch, even going into the regular season. So what does Auburn do in that situation? Or when they get it, do they kick it back out with a potential, second chance point opportunity there from a Miles Kelly or a Chad Baker-Mazara shooting it from deep? Like, do they capitalize on those? And it's just been very hot or cold with his team. And so can they capitalize on all that?
Yes, then you know you're in.
All right, I'm done. I think I'm done. I think the show's over.
Katie's awesome, man. What are you talking about?
What her singing is the issue.
I'll lay out then. Zach, you got an X Factor stat, or was that yours?
No, I don't have one. I did not come prepared for that. My bad.
I would like to say that is just so rude from Zach to insult the Grammy snub for Please Come Back Leaky Black. That is incredible. That you
I was thinking about that the other day, actually.
You know
what? That was
incredible. I just told Andy the other day, I'm actually working on a transfer portal song right now that is basically Wake Me Up When September Ends, but it's called When the Portal Ends. It's going to be a banger. I'm just telling you.
Another Grammy.
Wake us up when it starts, because we're still playing games here. So, we're not doing too much there.
Yeah.
Well, not true for the Zags or for the Tar Heels. That's why Andy and I are doing what we're doing. All right, guys, this game tips 6:09 p.m. Eastern time. That's a guarantee because we ain't got no other game we're waiting on before it. It's a nice round number there, 6:09. You know that Raf is going to be right on there with Ian Eagle. It's going to be great on CBS. Florida favored at our friends at FanDuel by 2.5 points. How's this going?
Florida's covering. Thanks.
I would say if you're betting on Auburn, don't bet on Auburn plus 2.5. I would take the money line, because I think whoever wins this game, I think they win it definitively. I don't think this is a 1 or a 2 point game. I think whoever wins this, they win it in the last 5 or 6 minutes of the game. What we've seen from Florida in the tournament down the stretch, UConn and Texas Tech, they didn't have the horses for the full 40 minutes. I think Auburn does, and I think Auburn wins the last few minutes of the game, and I think they win by a few possessions.
Didn't have the horses when Florida didn't have Elijah Martin, but okay.
It's fine. That's fine.
Nor Handlock.
I think it's great how important a game that 2 months ago, I'm glad that means so much to you.
It's the only time we have the head-to-head here. That's it.
Great. Sadly,
excuse me for using the context available. Thanks.
Yeah.
Folks, that's going to wrap it up for us today. I love the debate. I love the conversation. I'm really excited for this game. I think it's going to be incredibly fun. I'm obviously excited for Duke Houston too, but I think that this game is going to be.
Who did y'all pick? Are we the only ones picking?
Right. You want to hear our picks? Isaac, who's your pick? Go first.
I got Auburn straight up. Straight up for Auburn. Sorry, B.O.
No, we're not friends anymore.
This is what I say all the time. I cheer for my bracket. Auburn is my champion in my bracket. I'm just doing what my bracket tells me to.
Which is hilarious because I earlier said Duke, even though my bracket says Houston. So I guess I'm going against my bracket,
You're unfaithful to your bracket.
Well, I guess I'm going to continue that trend because in my bracket, I had Houston playing Florida. So I guess I'll also go with Auburn. Go with Auburn.
How does it feel? How does it feel knowing that you're all going to be wrong?
That did not go how I was expecting it to. That's great.
Me neither, awesome. Zach. I thought we were friends here, but I guess not. All right.
Bio's never coming on the show again.
Nope.
He's never with us.
Never.
You won't need him for a national championship preview, so that's fine.
All right, there you have it. The guys making their picks. Of course, Zac Blackerby locked on Auburn, and Brandon Olson locked on Gators. Just give you the ESPN predictions on the Florida versus Auburn team. Jeff Borzello, he's predicting Florida to win 82-79. Myron Metcalf has Florida winning 88-84. Joe Lunardi took Florida to win 85-80. Neil Payne, only Auburn Tiger pick here, picks Auburn 80-78. So all of them, like the biggest point of margin, Lunardi has a 5-point win for Florida. That's the biggest point of margin. So everybody expects this one to be a close one. Despite, what was a 9-point loss for Auburn back in February, but different teams, different, points in the season. And so this is going to be a fun one. Absolutely fun one. I told you guys already earlier in the week, I'm taking Auburn. If I'm sticking with my head tells me to take Florida. I know a lot of people are saying Florida's the hottest team right now. I just stuck with my gut that Auburn's been the hottest team in the country or the number one team in the country for much of the season. The best team in the SEC for much of the season. I think Auburn puts it all together. It's their best team they've ever had. I think they go as far as the best Auburn team ever has. One more note here real quick, guys. We talked about the Texas A&M open head coaching position. Chris Beard is staying at Ole Miss. A report came out the other day that, of course, Beard had decided to stay at Ole Miss. Keith Carter, Ole Miss's athletic director, provided confirmation, posting "Why stop now?" with a photo of him and Chris Beard. So with that decision, a longtime Texas sports reporter Brian Davis offered some insight. He reported, according to his sources, that Chris Beard initiated contact with A&M through intermediaries. The report detailed that Beard played up with the rivalry with Texas, his former employer. He noted that Beard had previously downplayed his history with Texas due to his connection to Rodney Terry. Texas, of course, fired him. They hired Sean Miller. Beard successfully leveraged A&M's interest into a new deal at Ole Miss. So whether he was even really interested in the A&M deal or job, or he was just literally just using it to get more money out of Ole Miss, it worked. So Beard will stay at Ole Miss, and we'll see what happens when Ole Miss plays A&M. But the search for a head coach continues for A&M. As of this recording, they have not hired somebody. I was told earlier today, Chris Mack is a name to keep an eye on, the guy that used to coach at Louisville. His head coach at College of Charleston right now. So we'll see. But Aggies not going to get Chris Beard. Would have been a hell of a storyline. The former Longhorn coach the Aggies, but not going to happen. All right. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. For your second listen, you can check out Locked On College Basketball with Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. March is here. Be the most informed college basketball fan throughout the madness. Best of luck to Florida. Best of luck to Auburn. We'll be back here on Monday recapping the win. And who will the winner play? Will it be Duke? Will it be Houston? We'll get you set for it all on Monday's edition of Locked On SEC. Come on back and see us then.